Hey, what's up? It's Mr. Estrada here, and our aim for this video is how do we perform operations with fractions with an x or any other variable. So in our first video in this series, we looked at operations like adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying with fractions, but except in that video, we didn't have variables. The difference in this video is that we are going to have variables. Okay, so let's warm up. Rewrite the fractions below as a single fraction. Okay, now there is a rule that is expressed in this way. The rule says a over c plus b over c is equal to a plus b over c. Essentially, what the rule is saying is that if two fractions have the same denominator, you can rewrite it as a single fraction by joining the numerators. So in this case, you have a common denominator of c. So since you have a common denominator of c, you could join the fractions together by joining the numerators under the common denominator of c. That's what it says. Simple. So let's use this rule to rewrite the fractions here as a single fraction. So the common denominator is 8, so we have a common denominator of 8, and now we just join the numerators. So it's going to be x plus y, not xy over 8. This over here is incorrect because you're adding x and y, and this over here says multiply. So this is incorrect. This is the correct answer. Okay, example 1. Perform the operation. 5 over 3x to the third plus 2/15. Okay, so look, you still have the same objective as you had before when you were adding regular fractions. You want to create a common denominator. So let's rewrite the original problem. 5 over 3x to the third plus 2/15. So I want to create a common denominator. So what you want to look at is this denominator here and ask yourself, what does the other denominator have that this one doesn't have? Well, it's got a 15. So what do I have to multiply this by to get that 15? I have to multiply it by 5. And whatever I do on the denominator, I have to do on the numerator. Now, look at this denominator, the 15. What does the other denominator have that this doesn't have? It has an x to the third. So that means I have to multiply this by x to the third. All right, now look. What was the whole point of that? Well, the point is that you've now created a common denominator. Because 5 times 3x to the third is 15x to the third, and 15 times x to the third is 15x to the third. So you have a common denominator. The denominator is the same now for both fractions, and that's what you wanted. You wanted to create a common denominator. So now on the numerator, after multiplying across, you'll have 25 here, and over here you'll have 2x to the third. Okay, so let me just type that up for you. So I know that's a little sloppy. So here's what we get after we multiply across. All right, now let's combine the numerators to turn it into a single fraction. So we're going to combine the numerators to turn it into a single fraction. We get 2x to the third plus 25 over the common denominator of 15x to the third. So this goes back to the warm-up. And you are done here. That's your final answer. Now, the question that comes up here is, can we reduce? Can we reduce this? Obviously, the answer is no, because I said that's the final answer. But why can't you reduce this? Why can't this be reduced anymore? You know, some student might say, well, you could reduce 15 and 25. But see, the problem with that is that you have to remember that this denominator also applies to the 2. So in order for you to be able to reduce here, all the terms in this fraction have to have a common factor. And they don't, so you can't reduce it anymore. So that is your final answer. So no, you cannot reduce. Because all the terms, whoops, I misspelled terms, that's so like me. Because all terms must have a common factor here. And I forgot an M, common factor. So you can't reduce anymore here. Example 2. Perform the operation and reduce the answer fully. So we got, just by the way, this was the original problem. 7x to the third over 6 divided by 7x over 4. But I'm going to rewrite that like this because I think that makes it a little easier. Alright, so now, do you remember what to do with when you're dividing fractions? You want to change to multiplication and flip the fraction you are dividing by. So we get this. So the multiplication, so the division becomes multiplication, excuse me. And you are going to flip this fraction. You flip it over to 4 over 7x. Now you just multiply across. So let's multiply across. 7x to the third times 4 and 6 times 7x gets you 28x to the third over 42x. Okay, now I'm going to rewrite 28x to the third like this. 28x times x times x. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want you to see that an x cancels out with an x. So you're just left with 28x squared over 42. And we got to reduce that. We could definitely reduce that. Because 28 over 42 reduces to 2/3, so you get 2x squared over 3. Okay, now you're probably wondering what I'm using to reduce that. And here's what I'm using to reduce that. I'm using 14, the common factor 14, because 14 goes into 28 2 times and 14 goes into 42 3 times, so it reduces to 2/3. But you can also use the graphing calculator for that. You remember I showed you how to use the graphing calculator for that? It's in the first video titled Operations with Fractions. So you might want to check it out there on how to use the calculator to reduce fractions. Okay, I hope this video helps. Take care.